أتى الله بقلب سليم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا تحمل إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم وقد سجلنا ومن النور من همسات الشياطين ونعوذ بربك أن يحضرون قل علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا كثيرا من علم العظيم. أما بعد. So we have a presentation here. It is basically a summary of the seminal work, which was the last work of Imam Hujjat al-Islam al-Ghazali Muhammad al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala. And in this book he actually explains, how a very systematic approach how to be a faithful and true servant of Islam, for which you've been created for. So what we're going to do tonight is we're just going to go through kind of like a summary of the whole work. And then tomorrow we're actually going to, in a workshop format, we're going to actually try and acquire practically some of the qualities that the book invites us to adapt. So the name of the book is called Al-Minhaj al-Abidin, or loosely translated, you could say the way of the worshippers, the path to Ubudiyyah. Now, those of our Arab brothers and sisters who understand the Arabic language, they would be familiar with this term, and those who aren't, we're going to talk about it in detail, inshallah. Now, before we get started for that, and actually congruently with the beginning of the book as it starts, so we're going to ask a question for everybody. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? Have you ever thought about that? If not, then we should think about it, because we only have one life and we only have one chance, and everything in this universe has a purpose, and it's used accordingly. If the purpose is not understood, then the resource goes to waste. It won't be used properly because it's not understood why it's present, why it exists. So for this question, and actually this is a question that I have been asking myself for the past 60 years. And this was a question I used to ask that ultimately led me to leave this country in the later 60s and then travel around the world, and finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the answer to this. Otherwise, the human mind is not capable of answering this question. If you don't believe me, then just go to Harvard. You got MIT, you got all these Ivy League schools around. So just go to the PhD departments and ask the professors and ask the students this question. What is your purpose of life? You'll be very hard-pressed to find someone that can answer you. And because I've done this many times. As I said, I've been doing this for decades. And most of humanity doesn't know their purpose of existence. As a matter of fact, if we think about it carefully, and if we look at the history of philosophy, you go back in the old philosophers of yore, so you'll find that this is the main question. And unless they're grounded in a revealed religion, in a form of the revealed religion, which is Islam as we know, they're not going to be able to answer this question. They'll grapple with it. They will, they'll end up saying perhaps, it doesn't even matter. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not important. Just live your life, enjoy your life, and move on. But it's extremely important. This is the most important question that we can ask ourselves. And so we need to be crystal clear on this. And as I said, unless you have direct connection with our Creator who has created us, because everything that is created, the Creator knows His purpose. For example, this change, or whatever you call this, whatever it is. What do you call this thing? Pointer. Okay. It points, it changes. It doesn't actually know anything. But the engineer who created this, he would tell you what it's for. If I don't know the purpose, I'd grapple with it, I'd fool around with it, and I wouldn't be able to figure out what his purpose is by looking at it, it's not possible. However, if I take the instruction manual that comes along with the device, so very clearly, I'll understand its purpose, I'll understand how to use it. If not, then I would probably, I would waste my money and waste my time and probably never come to grips with what this is for. So this human being is the most complicated creation in the universe. And only the creator of this human being knows why he created it. Right? And only he knows how it is properly utilized as well. So it's very critical that we tune in to what he has said. It's not like what I think. This always gets me. I think. Well, our thinking is quite limited to the scope of what we created, what our brains are created for thinking. We can think in terms of material, tangible things that we see, we feel, we taste, we touch, we can wrap around, intellectually. But the purpose of creation, we cannot do that. It is not possible. So therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has actually, explained to us, and we're going to talk about this in just a moment. And so this question actually, it will force you to think. It will force you to when we look around the universe, we look at the sky, we look at ourselves, we look at the universe, We look at now this coronavirus floating around. Isn't this amazing? Microscopic beings that you can't even see. They can stop the whole world. Right? So, this just happens, as they say, sudfa, just by coincidence. Or there's an intelligent design behind all of this. And obviously we know that there is. So when we look around at the universe, we look at ourselves, we look at the situation, within us, without us. So, so we say, yes, I am a creation. There is a creator, and he has created me for some purpose. And so it's a kind of what we call the khatir al-faza, this thinking that, it's not just about feeding myself, clothing myself, housing myself, transporting myself. Why am I here? What's the purpose of life? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? So this thought, and this, as we say, khatir, this sort of, awakening. This is also from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not like you can do this on your own. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very kind, He would actually bring about this awakening. And so, it's mentioned in the Holy Quran something like this. أَفَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ فَهُوَ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ. Is the one who will open his heart to Islam and hence he is upon the light from his Lord. Is he like the one who continues in darkness? The one who doesn't awaken and seek the answer to this question. Why am I here? What's my purpose of existence? And the person who asks this question sincerely to his Creator, then the Creator will definitely guide him. And once he guides him, then he guides him to the light of Islam. And he places the nur of Islam into his heart. And his heart expands and accepts that guidance and that light. And now he moves, in his day and his night and all his activities in the light of that nur, in the light of that guidance. And Nabi Islam, to further explain this process, he mentions, إِنَّ النُّورِ إِذَا دَخَلَ الْقَلْبِ انْفَتَحَهُ انْشَرَحَ. فقيل يا رسول الله هل لذلك من علامة يعرف بها؟ قال التجافي عن دار الغرور والإنابة إلى دار الخلود والاستعداد للموت قبل نزوله. Allah. So Nabi Sallallahu says, indeed, when the light of guidance, that very guidance that we talked about, enters the heart, it opens and expands. The heart opens and expands. Because as O Messenger of Allah, is there a sign of that? That this has actually happened? He says yes. And those signs are basically three, and they're connected intrinsically. Number one, detachment from the world of deception. This world that everyone is, made so important. I must succeed in this physical world. I must succeed in my career. I must succeed, in raising my bank account to such and such a level, And then when death comes, it's all totally immaterial. We leave it all and it all leaves us. So it's all channels of deception. We're chasing elusive shadows which we'll never catch. The faster we run after them, the faster they elude us. So this world is like that. In another hadith, Nabi Sallallahu says, "Al-dunya jifa, wa-tulabu hakila." This world is like a dead carcass. The world, meaning the world of the worldly things, and making one's objective in this world to acquire such worldly things. So that type of pursuit, is likened like this jifa, this dead carcass, which is eaten by dogs. Those who go after a dead carcass, a person with intelligence would not go after a dead carcass. It's useless. Only dogs go after it. It's only worthy for the feet of dogs. So this world and the worldly things and the worldly objectives, that's basically what it is. Detachment, so a detachment from that world of deception and turning to the world of eternity. The existence and the life that will continue forever and ever. That's the life. The next life, that is the real life. This is a testing ground. This is an examination hall. This is a very short, very short sojourn we have. The day of Qiyamah alone, a day of 50,000 years according to our reckoning. 50,000 years, right? So suppose somebody lives 100 years in his life, then what does that equate? So if a day is 50,000 years, so 100 years of that 50,000 year day would equate to what period of time of that day? You follow my point? So it equates to about 2.5 minutes. It's a fleeting, it's a few seconds, And it's not 50,000 years. The actually is not 50,000. Just reckoning who's going where. That reckoning, 50,000 years, and that's nothing in terms of in terms of eternity. And then the eternal life. There's no third existence. After death, it's either paradise forever and ever, or otherwise it's the fire of hell forever and ever. So it's a very critical situation. So, if that light of guidance enters into the heart, these are the alamat. These are, if you like, the KPIs, the key performance indicators that actually we've gotten it correct. Okay. The worldly life, we see it for what it is. It's a place of deception. It's a place of trial and tribulation. Which of us, cling to it, and which of us detach and cling to our Creator and the life of hereafter in His presence and with Him in His pleasure. So detachment from that world of the world, turning towards the Dar al-Khulud, the Dar of eternity, the life of eternity, and preparation for death before it overtakes us. One of our pious ancestors, he was walking, and so a janazah was coming. Janazah went past. Someone asked, whose janazah is that? So he told the fellow, it's your janazah. He said, if you don't like that, then it's my janazah. In other words, he's now and we're to come shortly after. That's why when we greet the people of the qubur, when we say, Assalamu alaikum ya ahl ad-dar min al-mu'min, antum as-sabiqun wa nahnu insha'Allah ba'dukum lahiqun. Nasallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You are the predecessors, and we are to come shortly after. This is the reality. For this purpose, we are in this life to prepare for that. So this is one of the key factors, or this is the key points of being an actual slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, realizing our purpose of existence. And as I said earlier, this purpose of existence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't given this to us, for our own ijtihad or for our own, sort of research. He has, with all clarity, He has given us, our purpose without any ambiguity. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ I have not created you for any other purpose, you, mankind and jinn, except to be continuously engaged in my ubudiyyah. And roughly we would translate that, except for worship and servitude. To understand this better, so we need to understand the root word. Illa liya'budun. Okay? So illa liya'budun, this is a verbal construct, you see. So it is not, we haven't created you to be for worship, or actually that's not what's being said here. We have not created you except to be continuously engaged in ubudiyyah. You're always doing it. This is what we call fi'l mudari'. It is continuous. It's going on now and it continues forever. As long as we're on the planet, we have been created to continuously be engaged in a life of servitude, in activities of servitude. And we cannot live a life of servitude unless we have a state of being, a state of mind and heart that is constantly reminding us that we are slaves. People don't like that term here, This is the United States of America. We're free, Well, if you're free, then come into the world on your own. Leave the world on your own, Run your body, run the universe on your own. We are creation. We are slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who lives a life of slavery here, he will live forever and ever in eternity as a free man and woman. That's not what it's about here. It's about understanding. And that's all. He's not going to force us, He's not going to force us to be His servants or slaves. We'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, inshallah. And we'll go into this ubudiyyah in its scope and in all of its branches. And we have a very interesting exercise, a practical exercise to look into ubudiyyah and all its facets tomorrow, inshallah. Will I be coming tomorrow, inshallah? Inshallah. Okay. So basically, ubudiyyah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience and servitude out of His love and reverence. Not because we have to, but because we want to. And as I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in full clarity, He explains, La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion to surrender. Here, yes, you will surrender, definitely, after death, liking it or unliking it. But here, there's no compulsion. And we'll talk about that in detail tomorrow, inshallah. So, challenges. So, is it going to be easy? Anything worth achieving is not easy. If it's easy, it's not worth achieving. We say in Arabic, al-ghali ghali wal-rakhis rakhis. Which of our Arab brothers are here? Who speaks the Arabic language? Yeah? Al-ghali ghali wal-rakhis rakhis. Is that clear? Expensive is expensive. Cheap is cheap. Right? So it's not going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to be easy, but doable. So, can you see this diagram? It's a picture, actually. Do you see what it is? What's that?
River. It is a river. Mountain.
No, it's actually not. We don't see it. That's a mountain pass, actually. See, those are mountains, and this is a road that goes up there. Now, as you can see, that's a pretty steep pass, right? I mean, those are big mountains, right? That's pretty steep. So, would you say that pass is passable? Can we actually, get up there to the top? Is it possible or not?
Yes.
How do you know?
There is a path.
Huh?
There is a path.
There's a path, so somebody made that, somebody made it up there. So if somebody made it, then why not we can make it too? So it's not undoable, it's just doable, but it might be a little bit difficult, it might be strenuous, you might huff and puff a bit, but you can do it, There's another one. That's even maybe tougher, But as you can see, there's actually people, they're moving along. So it's tough, no doubt. But it's doable. That's even more difficult. Look at that. Small. That's a pretty scary pass now. But there must be something very, worthy to reach at the top of that mountain, if nothing more than just the view. There's another one. And that's really awesome, huh? Look at that. That is really a tough path. But again, doable?
Yes.
Yeah, it's doable. Albeit it's going to be difficult, but it's doable. So similarly, Imam Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book, very novelly, he has likened the journey in this life to these 7 mountain passes. So you get through one, and then you think you've made it, but then you've got another one to deal with. And another one. And then another one. And then another one. And 7 types of very strenuous passes we have to pass through to actually get to our destination. To reach that plateau of Rububiyyah consistently. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us on that journey with afiyat and take us to our destination. So the first thing that we need is knowledge. If you don't know how to climb that mountain path, or if you don't even know where it is, then obviously, there's no question of getting through, of getting to the top. So knowledge is basically of 2 types. One is basically knowledge about the Creator who has created us, and secondly is the knowledge of how to deal, how to interact and how to behave in terms of our relationship with our Creator. And then in terms of relationship with our fellow creation. And so knowledge is not something that we just acquire for some intellectual, as we say, intellectual acrobatics. It has a purpose. And the purpose is that we want to connect with the Creator. So there's 3 tiers of knowledge as we describe them. One is the type of knowledge which is desired for its own intrinsic property, and that is that knowledge which is connected with knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His asma, His sifat, knowledge of ilm billah. And once we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we need to know how to interact, how to behave with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His creation. So then this is the ilm, the ahkam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down. And He has made us mukhallafeen, He has made us responsible to learn and to practice. And that much knowledge we have to learn that we actually have to engage in our life's day-to-day activities, which we call ilm al-hal. And then we'll talk about that in another session with more detail. But without knowledge, it's obviously impossible to move in the path of ubudiyyah and servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we'll have to go through that. And the search for knowledge is not an easy path. We can just talk about that for the next week. So it's a difficult path, but it's the most rewarding path. And then we get through with knowledge and we find out that so to put into practice this knowledge, so I am creating, difficulties, hurdles for myself because day and night I'm committing sins. With my tongue, with my eyes, with my ears, with my thinking, with the utilization of resources Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given me. So, how can I actually be able to tread a path of knowledge towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and towards the servitude, and I'm as we say, loweth, and dirtied and spoiled with the taint of sin. So I need to perform tawbah. And so there's conditions to that, there's a methodology for that, and there's a way in which we have to be continuously turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in tawbah. So we get through knowledge, we get through tawbah, and then we find a whole another set of hindrances, a whole another more tougher path, as it were, what we call an awaiq. Obstacles, hindrances that are preventing us from actually reaching our goal. Number one, dunya. Particularly those people who live here in the United States of America, mashallah, you need a lot of it, right? Apparently. You know, just to pay your rent at the end of the month, you pay your groceries, you know, your children's education, which we consider education, that perhaps is debatable. What we consider as education may or may not actually be. But in any case, there's a lot of things, you know, that we're connected to in the world, in our worldly existence. And so, the more we get connected to these things, you know, the more our life becomes difficult. The more we're going to be distracted from our actual objective. So, the strategy in terms of the world and the worldly things is abstinence. Meaning, to do with the least amount necessary. When you're traveling, you're traveling from here to New York City, and you're going to stay there for a few days. Do you take your house with you? Do you take, 30, 40 sets of clothing, all your jewelry, all your cash, and you take what's necessary for the journey. That's practical, and also makes your journey more easy. Doable. Makes it less cumbersome. So simply, we're in a journey here. We're not here to stay. We're in a journey. We need to get through to the end of the journey, which is death. So until from here until there, what we need to take us on the journey, that's how much we actually need. Right? And this is different for different people in different times in different places. So there's a lot to be said about that, but we're just giving an outline. So okay, the next thing is the khalq, people. So to be a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to know, we have to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means we have to spend maximum amount of time in that pursuit, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when we connect with the creation, although that is also something we have to do, and we need to do, and we should be doing, but the more we connect with the creation, the less we become, or the more we become disconnected, generally speaking, from the Creator. So we've got a paradoxical situation here. So what we need to do is, even though we have to socially interact, we have our families, we have community, we have ummah, we have the global, So there's going to be interaction which is necessary. However, we need some time for solitude. Just between us and our Creator. So when can we do that? How can we do that? This needs to be described and defined. Then we have shaitan. Inna shaitan lakum aduwwan fattakhidhuhu aduwwan. Shaitan is the open enemy. Take him as an enemy. Usually when shaitan is mentioned, people start smiling. I don't know why, but it seems to be a joke. It's not a joke at all. Shaitan has actually taken an oath, sworn in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I will attack them from the front, behind, right, left, up, down, every direction. And you will find most of them grateful. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied, well, I'll fill Jahannam with all of you. So it's not a joke. If we know we have an enemy, we treat that enemy as an enemy. We put up our security measures, Do you sleep well at night when we know we have an enemy that's out to destroy us? Someone threatened us, and that person who was threatened us has the wherewithal to actually, to harm us. So we sleep soundly in the night. We laugh heartily and live in negligence. We'll be continuously, taking our security steps, protecting ourselves from onslaught of shaitan. So that requires strategy, that requires awareness, that requires understanding how shaitan manipulates. And volumes have been written on the subject, so we need to have a basic understanding of that. That's a separate topic in itself. And then, the most difficult of all enemies, nafs. The greatest enemy that we have is that enemy which is within us. Shaitan is, albeit he's outside, he comes, he attacks, he goes. Nafs is continuously with us. And nafs is never going to tell us anything other than do what it wants to do. Right? What it wants to do, it wants to enjoy. It wants to, it wants to have a life of fulfillment of desires. And that is basically what we see in the world today. 724 entertainment. You can't even walk down the street without these things in your ears being entertained. So you just forget about really what your purpose is. Entertainment continuously. Distraction continuously. So this is what. So nafs has its own. That's a never-ending problem. It's a struggle throughout life, and so that also requires a particular strategy. It requires a particular knowledge. It requires particular measures and efforts to save oneself from that. So we grapple with that, and we finally, get squared away there, and then we face a whole other set of problems. Al-awarif. We said that it's not going to be easy, but doable, albeit. So we get through it all. Now we have, these problems. Al-awarif. These things which are obstacles, situations that continuously, present, and we think we're right on the track and we're moving, and then we're faced with risk. For example, we lost our job. Everything was going fine. I was coming to the masjid, my kids were getting educated, and all of a sudden, there's a recession, I lost our job, something like that. What do we do? So, for that, we need athar. I should go back to this. Yeah, back to these awadid, I forgot to mention that, as we said, there's a strategy for all of these things, you see. But the umbrella concept, how we have to deal with all of these, these hindrances, is number one, dunya, abstinence. Khalq, creation, dealing with other people, we need some solitude. And even when we're dealing with other people, we can't lose our connection with the Creator. As Nabi was described by Aisha, that he was physically with the people, but he was internally connected with Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Shaitan is just battle. I mean, there's no way that we're going to have a sulh. There's no way that we can actually, negotiate with Shaitan and say, look, let's have a compromise here. It's never going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. So it's going to be an embattlement throughout. And similarly, nafs, we're going to have to oppose it. We have to learn how to do that. Okay, now this one gives all fulfilled. Then we got these awadid, these obstacles. As I said, rizq, sustenance, paying for the things, So that becomes, everybody's objective. And basically, throughout the world, this is what everybody, from the beginning of the education to the end of it, what they call education, which I have a problem with that, but we'll talk about that tomorrow in more detail. It's all about this rizq. If you look at it, get into a good kindergarten. Where do they go now? They still have kindergarten? They still have this? I mean, since I was here, they've changed all these things. So you go to kindergarten. Why do you go to good kindergarten? Because we need to get into the good, grade school, grammar school. And why do we do that? Because we need to get into a good middle school. And why do we do that? Because we need to get into a good high school. Why? Because we need to get into a good college and university. Why? Because we need a good job. Why? We need good money. Why? So we're happy. Oh yeah? Let's take the statistics. Looking at statistics, now this is very interesting because happiness is quite an elusive, topic. Everybody wants to be happy, but apparently very few are, isn't it? And interestingly, where people think happiness is actually where you find the least of it. If I just get that payroll, if I just get a house in that community, if I just get that degree, if I just get that, level of whatever. But you know what? Recently now, they're really taking it seriously, because people want to be happy. So they've done a lot of studies, and there's very interesting studies now that show the more people, have materialistic objectives. In other words, the more I'm looking after, I'm searching for, and I'm making effort for material, money, position, fame, name, etc. The less my happiness, it's just congruently, it's going to be exactly proportionate. The amount of material that I'm, looking for, or the amount of material objective that I have, proportionately my happiness level is going to be on the decline. These are studies which are recently done. And they found also that the opposite is true as well. When someone has a higher purpose, whatever that is, but its higher purpose is not money, it's not things. It's a higher purpose in life. To the extent that they are actually having a higher purpose in their efforts and in their life's projections, then proportionately their happiness level is on the increase. And the Quran is replete with this information, and we don't need these these studies to tell us that, but just to reinforce what we already know. So for this rizq, and after all, we're looking for rizq, and rizq is already guaranteed for every creation on the planet. وَمَا مِن دَابَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. Every single creature has been ordained his amount of rizq. Even the cockroaches and the rats are getting the amount of rizq that's ordained to them. And they're not stressed out about it. Did you see dogs and cats stressed out about their rizq? They just carry on with their life and they get what's ordained to them. Human beings are similar, but human beings is a much more complicated scenario. So he thinks that his rizq is proportionate to his efforts. And we will have to talk about that in more detail. But it's actually, it is not contingent upon your effort. It is contingent upon what Allah has ordained for you. You make your effort because you don't know what is ordained for you. And then what comes to you, you're happy with it. You get it, fine. You don't get it, that's also fine. So this problem with rizq, it requires tawakkul ala Allah. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Who puts his trust and dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more than sufficient for him. And then we have these akhtar, these dangers, problems. Coronavirus. Should I go to New York? Should I go back to Pakistan? Make it, plan your strategy, do your analysis, do your research, and then leave it up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the best at disposing. Right? And then we have calamities, we have difficulties. Somebody actually got that virus, somebody passed away, somebody's afflicted with this, somebody's afflicted with that. What do we do? Sabr. Patient. The affair of the mu'min is amazing. Everything that happens to him, good, bad, otherwise, it's all good for him, provided his reaction to that is appropriate. Difficulties happen, he's patient. He gets what he likes, which is favorable, then he's grateful. Between grateful, gratitude, and patience. And then, qadr, muqaddar. What's going to happen is going to happen, isn't it? And so, when things happen that are destined to happen, we have no control over those things. So, what is our relationship to those incidents? We accept that. We are pleased with that. We're happy with that. We're involved. Okay? So now we struggle, we grapple with these four, these obstacles. And we've gotten through that, path. And then we light down and then we find that we have another problem. Because sometimes we feel motivated and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we feel like it, sometimes we don't. So for that we need hope and feel. Hope and raja. Targheeb and tarheeb continues to move us along the path. Right? And you'll find the Usloob of Quran is replete with this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the paradise, He mentions Jahannam. Who does this? مَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. So between hope and fear, we are motivated and pushed forward, inshallah. So we need to learn about these motivators and how to utilize them and leverage them, for our benefit. And then, going through all of that, and that's a difficult path as it is, then we come to a much more difficult path. Doing all of this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be sincere, only for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, to show, ostentatiousness, it's a destructor of all of that effort, the previous effort. Or we think that I've done this, I did it. And we forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is actually giving us the tawfiq. It's His favor upon us. It's nothing about our kamal, it's nothing about our intrinsic, worth. And so dealing and grappling with these constructs is also its own aqaba and mountain path and difficulty path. And then finally, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us tawfiq to do all of that, then finally the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gratitude to Him, because by His tawfiq we've been able to do ma tawfiqi illa billah wasbir ma sabruka illa billah, etc. So all of these, the ability to be able to move in this path, to succeed in this path, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor, and it's His, it's His fadl upon us. And so to respond to this with hamd and shukr, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. So this is basically, the khulasa of that book, and I would recommend, perhaps you might, actually have a teaching of this book and break it down into lessons. And it's just a wonderful, it's a whole roadmap of how to actually be an effective servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we've been created to be. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us tawfiq.
Ameen.
And I think it's time for salat.
Ameen. Time for food.
Huh?
Time for food.
Time for food.
العشاء قبل العشاء.
Al-Asha al-Isha. Well, that's good. That also puts a cap on it, right? So that's until what time?
8:45.
8 up until 8:45 is food. So we take that seriously as well. So remember, what we said, that also has to do with the world, but it also has, so while we're eating, remember it's the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kulu wa shabu wa la tusrifu. Eat, drink, don't be wasteful. Don't be wasteful, be grateful, and why are we eating? Because it's the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He wants, He gives us energy. If He wants, He can deplete us of it. So it's His order, and by His order, inshallah. Okay? And with Bismillah and all the other sunnahs, alhamdulillah, and all the sunnahs that we know, and the ways and the intentions, so our intention and following Sharia and Sunnah. So our eating also becomes part of this rububiyyah. As we're going to see tomorrow, inshallah, hopefully you all come, we're going to see how every action of ours can be an act of rububiyyah and ibadah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Jazakumullah khairan.